Good evening and welcome to Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho. Tonight, Zimbabwe is at a constitutional crossroads. The cabinet has approved a draft legislation that could fundamentally change how power is won and how long it's held. The proposal would extend the presidential terms from 5 years to 7. Shift the elections of the president from direct popular vote or universal suffrage to parliamentary system, and expand the Senate by allowing the president to appoint up to 10 additional senators. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we are about to unpack this, and we are going to take you to the person who has written extensively. He's a special guest on this program. He follows Zimbabwean politics. He's done a great amount of work on Zimbabwe. So very shortly, I'm going to introduce to you the guest who is going to lead us through this discussion. But if this bill is passed, these changes could allow President Emerson Mnangagwa to remain in office until 2030, despite current term limits ending in 2028. Now, for context, the government says this is about stability and policy continuity. The opposition is raising hell. It says this is a constitutional coup. And of course, here to unpack all this, the political, legal, and economic implications, we are joined by my good friend, Professor Elliott Masocha, a Zimbabwean analyst and professor of business and political science at DeVry University in Columbus, Ohio. Professor Masocha, welcome to Different Perspectives.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Thank you, viewers, too, for watching.
It's a fascinating time. It's been a while since you and I had this discussion, but set the stage for us. You've written extensively about your beloved country. You follow the politics there. Set the stage for us. What does this mean from a viewer's or an ordinary person's point of view?
Well, what it means is that ZANU-PF, first of all, it's following its party's constitution. A resolution was passed, at the ZANU-PF conference, and that was not the only resolution that was passed. A couple of resolutions were passed, and that was resolution number 1 to extend the president's term of office to 2030. And there was justification for that, that he has been doing a good job. So they are taking it over from that resolution from their political party conference to parliament, following exactly the constitution of Zimbabwe. So it's normal what is happening right now, but it does not in any way that any bill that is tabled in parliament and voted for as this big resolution of changing the constitution and the president's term of office, it doesn't mean at all that is going to pass. It's something that is normal, that happens in a lot of countries, and those who are appointed to do that, they are just doing their own job. And each and every citizen of Zimbabwe, according to the constitution of Zimbabwe, is supposed to get a chance to do their job, to make sure the constitution is amended or not, to accommodate that ZANU-PF resolution. So that's what I'm seeing that is happening. And the other thing that is happening from both sides of ZANU-PF and the opposition and other civic groups that are making noise about that, it's necessary for that noise, because it proves beyond any reasonable doubt, and also it strengthens democracy in Zimbabwe, that everyone is allowed to to oppose or to support. And then, but it's going to come down to the voting of that in referendums. There are supposed to be 2 referendums, one to amend the president's term and the other one to do the same. to parliamentarians. So looking at 2028, when elections are supposed to be done, I don't think there's any time for that to succeed in any way besides that the person himself, President Mnangagwa, had said no multiple times. So whether
Wait a minute. You're saying that the president himself has said that, but who is behind this whole thing? I don't think there's somebody outside of the government who is trying to bring this to the forefront. I think the president himself is involved. At 83, he wants to extend his term to maybe another 10 years, 2030, right?
Yeah,
So you're saying that the
correct.
president is you're saying the
Yes.
president is not involved in this bill that has been drafted by cabinet. He's the head of cabinet.
Yeah, there's no way he can be involved in that bill. Number one is that he was the part of those people who drafted that constitution, knowing very well that it's impossible, and that is the reason why from the start he said no. Multiple times he said no. He said he knows the time and even the date he will leave office because he is a lawyer. And remember, in the Constitution of Zimbabwe, one listeners to understand this, there is Section 3. Let me get it right here. There is Section 328, point number 7, that says any amendment to the Constitution of Zimbabwe to extend the office of those who are already in power, it's never going to benefit those in power, but those who are coming next. So how exactly can he support extension of his rule when he was part of making that constitution, when that section 328 point number 7 is there?
Professor,
It's not possible.
let me follow up on that. I'm not a lawyer, but any reasonable person would argue that there is absolutely no way a sitting head of state can bring something to the forefront. He's the head of the cabinet in Zimbabwe. This is something that could potentially benefit him. He's pushing it through cabinet. They're going to take it to parliament to be voted on, and you're telling me that he has absolutely nothing to do with it.
Yeah, because he has no power to stop people of Zimbabwe to practice their constitutional right to pass on that bill in parliament. That's normal. He doesn't have any power. If you read the whole constitution, there is no power that the president can stop that process, except when it gets to his desk. If it is going to be a miracle for him to get it to his desk, as far as he has said, no, he will definitely veto it, because yes, that is his only power, to veto it. But again, some of his powers is what he has already done. He had said no multiple times. And remember, this past week, few days ago, it was announced at a ZANU-PF conference by the secretary of ZANU-PF's legal affairs that he had spoken to the president 3 times, one time in August, another time in September, and the last and final time was this past Tuesday, asking him about that. And he categorically said, I told you before, I told the world, I am not going to go beyond my second term. And it's reported that he was actually angry for being, asked that multiple times. But again, he does not have power to stop people from practicing their constitutional right to push it on. If a miracle is going to happen, we're going to have 2 referendums before 2028, which is not possible. But the person they are trying to amend the constitution to stay in power, he does not want. In the constitution of Zimbabwe, there is nothing that can force somebody to accept what he or she does not want to do.
Professor, we've seen this story happen across the continent. In East Africa, you have leaders who change their constitutions when it's politically expedient for them. They change term limits, they change age limits. anything is possible. So I will believe you when I see that happen. But how about the government is arguing that, for example, that they cannot do so much in the 5 years. They are arguing, they are saying that maybe an extension from 5 to 7 would allow them to complete their development programs from a governance point of view and business perspective. Does that really make sense? Is that somebody who is doing this not to benefit him politically?
It can mean something for the next president, according to the constitution of Zimbabwe, not the current president. The current president took office knowing very well that he has an assignment to finish in 4 years. Therefore, if he fails to finish in 4 years and try to change the constitution, that's not going to happen. It's his failure that he has to live with. And then the constitution can be changed for the next president to enjoy more than 4 years. But as for now, it's not going to be possible for him to do that, because other constitutions in other countries, it might have happened, maybe because they don't have what Zimbabwe's constitution have. Section 328.7 may not be in the constitution of other countries. So the other countries, they can do that, fair and fine, according to their constitutions. But according to the constitution of Zimbabwe, it's not possible. It's not going to benefit him. It's going to benefit the next president. Besides that, he took office knowing very well, because this was not his first term, by the way. He was there before, so he knew his assignment, just like what Professor Maduku was saying today, that if you enter an exam in class at university, it's going to last for 2 hours. There is no way you can say, please give me 3 hours to finish. You fail in 2 hours, and that's it. And the president is accepting it, that, well, I have done my part for the past 4 years, after I've done other 4 years as well. And besides that, he's also acknowledging his age. He wants to retire. He has been working for Zimbabwe for all his life. Just imagine you and me and everybody else in the world going to get your grandfather or grandmother of the president's age to come to work. So please, let's respect the president of Zimbabwe and allow him to enjoy his retirement, allow him to stand by his constitutional right of saying no. Whether he mean it or not, let's hold him accountable to his no and say, you said no, there's no way you are going to change from no. You did not only tell us in Zimbabwe to say no, you told the whole world. And he said that's what he will stand by, his no.
I'm not a politician, but again, I'm going to maybe put a caveat. I will believe you when I see that happens. I've dealt with politicians.
You're breaking up.
Okay, I was saying that I've been to your country several times. I've seen how politicians are very creative when it comes to changing constitutions. You and I can agree that a constitution is a working document. There's nothing wrong with amending a constitution. If he has the numbers like he does, what stops him from amending the constitution to benefit him politically? From what I've seen, what I've read, from talking to people who are on the ground in Zimbabwe, they're telling me a totally different story. They're saying the president and his maybe core cabinet members are trying basically to overthrow the constitution. This is something that would require a referendum. You just talked about how it's not possible to do a referendum in the next year, but actually what they are proposing, it's not a cabinet that can decide on a constitutional amendment like that. They need to go back to the people. Until the people decide that this is what we want, then they can go ahead with that. But what they're trying to do right now, they're trying to overthrow their own constitution. Would you not agree?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Of course, they may intend to do that. And if they don't know that they are going to fail, Professor Elliott Masocha, is telling them that they are going to fail to, amend anything, if they are going to go to the people of Zimbabwe, this is not the first time it has been done to go to a referendum for the constitutional changes. And the people of Zimbabwe have always won. They have always won. Their will has always, succeeded. So, and I don't think it's going ever to go all the way to a referendum when he, the president, is saying no. And remember, this resolution was concluded and killed these past few days in a ZANU-PF conference when it was announced by the secretary of ZANU-PF's legal affairs that he had talked to the president, and the president said no, 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 as many times as he had said no. Therefore, the resolution had already died. Of course, we are hearing people, civic groups, we are hearing some other opposition, politicians saying, "Oh, there's going to be a coup on the constitution. They are going to amend this." Well, I want viewers to know that politics is what it is. It's a dirty game. They are playing politics knowing very, very, very well that nothing like that is going to happen. And it's within their constitutional right to, argue that way. And also, there are problems that happen not only in Zimbabwe for us to hear all these problems. But number one, the government in power may not know, I'm saying may not know how to communicate well to the public so that they do not panic, so that they can communicate to the public that it's the normal process that happens in amending the constitution, but it does not mean it's going to succeed if the majority of Zimbabweans do not want it in a referendum. So there should not be any panic. There should not be anybody going in the streets and risking their lives, demonstrating on something. If they are allowed to, exercise their constitutional right, let them speak at the ballot box.
But to your point, I just wanted to go back to a point that you made earlier. Let's talk about expediency. As we speak right now in Zimbabwe, there's almost no opposition. All those popular parties, MDC, and all the other popular parties are in disarray. What has happened to them? The current government has figured out a way to disorganize them and destroy them politically. So what the president and his cabinet are looking at, they're looking at a vacuum. So they're taking advantage of what's going on currently with the political parties. There is nobody to challenge him. So what stops him from coming up with this quote-unquote amendment of the constitution without going to the people, but going to his cabinet? There is no cabinet on this planet Earth that is not going to rubber stamp what their boss says. As you and I know, in Africa, the president's word is all that matters. So if you are telling me that all this is just they're just trying to play politics, no, these guys are serious. They want to amend the constitution so that this guy can have an extended term, maybe die in office. We've seen that happen before. Mugabe played the same games. His predecessor, he worked under Mugabe. The ZANU-PF hasn't changed that much. It's been the same party since independence. So are you telling me that what we are reading, what we are seeing, the intent of these guys, it's all false?
No, it's not false, but what is false is that it's going to succeed. Okay. And the other thing is that ZANU-PF may have compromised the opposition to be as wicked as it is, but I don't think ZANU-PF will succeed in compromising the people of Zimbabwe to vote for that amendment in a referendum. And also, I don't think we'll ever get to the point of having those two referendums before 2028, because there is no time for that. Absolutely, there is no time for that. And again, I don't think anyone will ever succeed to force President Mnangagwa to accept that extension to 2030. It has already been announced to ZANU-PF members in a conference that he said no, and the resolution to change the constitution has been put to rest in ZANU-PF.
How about for people who are arguing that, for example, one of the proposals says that they are going to end the direct popular vote. In other words, most people call it universal suffrage, where instead of people showing up on election day to vote for the president, to vote for members of parliament, they're instead going to vote for a political party, let's say ZANU-PF. And if ZANU-PF garners enough members, they create a government, and that in a way helps them to keep moving forward, keep running that country, instead of giving other people a chance. They are proposing to move away from that popular vote, where they would compete at a presidential level and go to a parliamentary system, just like the United Kingdom does. I think in Africa, the country that does that is Ethiopia. Ethiopia also has a parliamentary system. There are other countries that I've had that are also proposing. So basically, this is trying to circumvent the constitution and come up with creative ways of doing things. Your thoughts about that?
Well, I would want to hear, anybody who is going to tell me how they are going to go around section 328.7. How that says, any amendment to the constitution is not supposed to benefit those in power. How are they going to repeal that? And then again, 2028 is not far for two referendums, to be done. And doing all that to a person who said no, what benefit does it have to a country? The person said no, and you want to keep on wasting money, wasting resources, instead of using it to develop the country. So it will be a waste of time. And I don't think the international community is going to listen to that. He has already announced to the international community, and there are international businesses in the country that are looking forward to a smooth transition of power from the president. And I don't, we look at the way the president got in power. When somebody was removed, the way he was removed and he got in power, do you really think a normal person would want to stay in power more than necessary for such things to happen? He's not, I don't see at any point he will ever change his mind and say yes. No matter how much people are going to do whatever they are going to do, the president of Zimbabwe is likely feeling his body and his age, and that he has done enough for Zimbabwe. He can actually contribute more after he has left, maybe in a council of elders. That's an honorable position for any former president to have, other than staying in power when there are, violations of the constitution.
I've covered Zimbabwe extensively. I've been to your country. I covered the first election when Mnangagwa was elected as president. I covered the second one when he was also running and won for president. But there is something that maybe we are not getting. I've covered also a lot of African politicians. Most of them tend to think that they are smarter than the people they serve, which I see happening in Zimbabwe. They're trying to use the same template that Mugabe used for all these years. He had no opposition, no legitimate opposition that was challenging him. This guy is enjoying this right now, and he's trying to take advantage of that and say, hey guys, nope, let's change the constitution because nobody is going to challenge me in court. I saw something that was written by your justice minister, where he was saying that this bill will be gazetted and sent to parliament. Does the ruling party have the numbers to pass this? Of course they do. But shouldn't the Zimbabweans be the people to decide how that goes forward?
Yeah, those processes that the Minister of Justice is doing, they are, normal, and his constitutional right to do that. That is job to do that. But what happens, that's not the end of it. It can be approved in parliament, fair and fine. And then there are processes that are supposed to be done before 2028, like a referendum. And the process to convince the president to, really accept that has already been done. And the president has already said no. So I don't know which president they are trying to extend his power to 2030 when the current president has said no. So processes may go as far as they can go, but we have already had an official response from the president of Zimbabwe, through a conference. There was, the normal way the resolution came is the normal way it was returned to, ZANU-PF delegates, that the president said no. And this is the end of it. So, of course, it may have happened to other African countries with other leaders, but they are not the same as what we are hearing in Zimbabwe and what we see in Zimbabwe, that the president is saying no. In other countries, well, presidents would lead that. And here we are actually like moving with something that is like a lie of saying, well, the president of Zimbabwe is the one who is saying, please change the constitution. And then on the other side, he's telling the whole world that he does not want to continue. That's a contradiction. I don't see it working at all. So let's straighten things here. It is not the president of Zimbabwe, President Mnangagwa, who is saying, please change the constitution so that I can stay in power, because he does not have that constitutional right to say that. Neither does he have a constitutional right to stop people from proposing to change the constitution. But again, it does not mean those who are trying to change the constitution will succeed. Neither does it mean that it's going to happen the same way it has happened in other African countries. It is not going to happen that way. And we've seen it before, that each African country is different in its own way with its own constitution. And in this case, the president is saying he is a constitutionalist. I don't see him at any point in time going against that, going against the constitution he helped to make himself, and going against his words of saying no to Zimbabweans, saying no to the world multiple times.
Are you suggesting that he is a constitutionalist when it's politically expedient for him to benefit from him? Are you also just saying that he's not the person saying that they should go and amend this constitution, make these amendments? Who is saying it? Is it the opposition that has brought us to this conversation?
No, it's the ruling party. And when we say the ruling party is ZANU-PF, it doesn't mean President Emerson Mnangagwa.
Who is the head of the ruling party? Who sits at the helm of the ruling party?
Yeah, you may be the head of a political party, but you don't have the right to silence people. People can pass any resolution, whatever they want, or maybe a resolution to remove you. But remember that section 328.7. Okay, no matter what they are going to do, it's 100% impossible to benefit him. Okay, it's 100% impossible to benefit him without the international community's intervention that we have seen before. And what benefit is he going to get to go against his word, to go against the Constitution, to go against section 328.7 and stay in power, a person of his age? He has already said no. He knows the time.
Paul Biya is 93. He's still running strong. Yoweri Museveni in Uganda is over 80. He's still running strong.
Yeah, they are not ruling.
Obiang of Equatorial Guinea is in his late 80s. He's still going strong. Yeah. What stops Mnangagwa from doing the same thing? After all, he's in that club. He's in that club of these leaders.
Exactly. What is going to stop President Emerson Mnangagwa is the constitution of Zimbabwe. Those countries you have mentioned, they have their own constitutions and their own way of doing things. But again, the president has said the constitution of Zimbabwe that I helped to draft has already stopped me from doing that. And even the takeover that happened from the previous president to the current president was done in a way that was never done in Africa. So whatever has happened in other change of positions, whether a coup or not, the way it was done in Zimbabwe was even commended by the international community, that it has never been seen in the history of the world where such takeover of power is done in a humane way, where people can sit down without a war happening and without any president being arrested, killed, or whatever. So Zimbabwe is different from all those countries.
It looks like we are having some huge following on social media. I see there are a lot of people watching this program live. Thank you all. Let me give a shout out to those people who are watching us. If you are just joining us, this is Different Perspectives. I'm Paul Ndiho. We are re-examining Zimbabwe's proposed constitutional changes with Professor Elliott Masocha. We are streaming live on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also follow the full conversation on Substack and Spotify. Just search for Paul Ndiho or Different Perspectives. Share your thoughts in the comment section below and tell us what you think about these constitutional changes or these proposed amendments that the ruling party in Zimbabwe is putting forward. Going back to you, Professor, I'm not a lawyer, but legal scholars would argue that an incumbent cannot benefit from a constitutional amendment. You already pointed that out, extending his term limits. But there's been precedent that has happened, not just even in Zimbabwe, where you are, Mugabe overstayed his welcome. In other countries, people have done that. So this is just a legal term, a legal technicality. This guy, like I said earlier, a constitution is a work in progress. What stops him? Because he's the helm. There is no other official in ZANU-PF who is above the president of Zimbabwe. There's absolutely not. You can have the party chairman, but the party chairman cannot be more powerful than the president of the country. So if he's telling his cabinet, I want you guys to push this, who is going to stop him? There is no opposition to stop him. What stops him from doing exactly what he's trying to do?
Number one, there's no evidence that he's telling anybody to do that. That's number one. Number two, President Mugabe ruled following a different constitution than the constitution that the current president is using, with Section 328.7. It was not there in the previous administration time. So comparing the length of time that President Mugabe stayed in power with a totally different constitution and this new administration, that's not fair, because those are two different administrations using two different constitutions. And the current president Mnangagwa was part of those people who drafted the current constitution with term limits. On top of term limits, there is Section 328.7. Again, that was not in the previous administration. So his justification of saying no was saying, I can't be seen by the world going against what I contributed to be there. So to me, there is no...
Is he a man of principle? Is President Mnangagwa a man of principle? Can you take his word to the bank?
I don't want to generalize here.
No. Simple question. Can you take his word to the bank? Is he a guy that you can rely on? If he says, I'm not doing this to benefit myself, can you take that to the bank?
In this case, I say 100% yes. I believe what he is saying and what he has already said. But at the time, it did not benefit him as an individual. Even when he was working on the constitution, he was doing it for the better good. But now,
Fast forward, he's the person in charge. There is no way he can be proposing these amendments if he doesn't want to benefit politically. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Exactly. What happens with people is that they tend to generalize and say anything that is happening in ZANU-PF, anything that is happening in government, it is the president who is engineering that. Well, if we are going to look at things that way, we are going to get lost. He does not have the constitutional right to do all that.
Hold your thought. Can an ordinary ZANU-PF member move an amendment like that within a party structure, or even at a party level? Can an ordinary member in ZANU-PF just do what the president and the cabinet are proposing? Even if it was just talking about internal rules within ZANU-PF, can an ordinary guy do that?
Well, that much I don't know the constitution of ZANU-PF, but if it is in the constitution of ZANU-PF or the constitution of Zimbabwe, I can say yes, if it is in the constitution. But for me to say an ordinary Zimbabwean cannot do that without being familiar with the constitution of ZANU-PF and the whole constitution of Zimbabwe, well, I would be lying. It may or may not be possible, depending on what is in the constitution of the ruling ZANU-PF and the constitution of Zimbabwe.
How about from a regional context? SADC, for example, emphasizes respect for term limits. How could this move, if it goes through, affect Zimbabwe's standing with its neighbors and international partners? Because we don't want to see a repeat of what happened in 2017. A coup happening again in Zimbabwe.
Yeah, so SADC definitely is behind following the constitution of Zimbabwe, and embassies in Zimbabwe that represent their governments, including the embassy of the United States, they are there, for whatever reason, mostly business reasons, to make on condition that Zimbabwe follows its constitution. So I don't think there's any pressure whatsoever for the president to leave office in 2028. He has already communicated that to SADC. He has already communicated that to the international community, as he has been saying in interviews. And I believe all those embassies in Zimbabwe and even regional groups like SADC, United Nations as well, part of it, and also the African Union, they also have the constitution of each country, such that those constitutions are going to be followed. And what the president is saying and has already said is that I am going to follow the constitution that I gave you through your ambassadors when they took office in my country. And I am a constitutionalist, and I'm going to follow that. So in no way can we come around and say, well, the president
is he a constitutionalist on paper? Is he a constitutionalist on paper or in principle? Is he a constitutionalist on paper or in principle?
Let's wait and see. But as far as I can tell, he is both on paper and on principle, because he had said it. So some answers can be brought out when time comes, but I don't think he will go against what he has already said.
Okay, let's do this. I'm willing to buy you a nice bottle of champagne if he doesn't go through with what he is proposing. If you think he's just trying to, I'll buy you a nice bottle of champagne if he doesn't go through with what he's saying.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's, the problem, what I'm seeing here, I listed a couple of problems of what is happening, and I think one problem that is there for people not to understand really what is happening and think is the president is the one who is pushing for that constitutional change for him to benefit, is maybe the failure of those in power to explain exactly the process that is happening. That this is according to the constitution, but it doesn't mean if you, the people of Zimbabwe, don't want it, it's going to pass. So that has not been communicated to people, that the process that is happening is normal. And again, lack of education about the government and the constitution, as happens here in the USA. Primary school kids, they take courses on the constitution of the USA, and there is the Constitution Day in the United States of America, where everybody is encouraged to be familiar with the Constitution. In Africa and in Zimbabwe, we don't have that. For people to really be familiar that, they have this constitutional right, the president doesn't have this constitutional right. There is not that. And again, number three, it's politics that is being played. Let's remember what politics is all about. Politics is a game, number one. Number two, politics is a dirty game. So I'm not going to go in details about that, but it has already been said throughout the whole world that politics is a dirty game. And I'm not saying it's a game of killing people or whatever, but it's a game that is played in different ways, and we can see it being played in Zimbabwe right now. Number four, well, it's unfortunate that me and you are part of those who are in the media, but the media industry survives on sensitizing things.
No, we're not sensitizing anything right here. We are looking at facts,
which is okay for people to involve people, to debate, but it's an industry. And then I can say number five, there is a lot of mistrust of Zimbabwean people to the Zimbabwean government for Zimbabweans to believe what the government is saying or doing, that it's not going to benefit them in power, because a lot has happened before, where in terms of the economy, currency is changing without any notice, and people are losing their money. So the Zimbabwean government has a lot of work to be trusted again by the Zimbabwean people, whether they are going to explain to the Zimbabwean people that, oh, we are just doing this, but it doesn't mean it's going to succeed. It doesn't mean we're going to force the president. People have lost trust, which is a big thing for the upcoming administration, to make sure they are going to invest in the confidence of the citizens of Zimbabwe, such that we may work towards, developing the country.
Professor, you just reminded me of something. I talk to a lot of people from Zimbabwe. I have a lot of friends from Zimbabwe. I used to work with a lot of colleagues from Zimbabwe. And like you correctly said, there is so much that needs to be done. In fact, you just reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from President Abraham Lincoln. When he was describing democracy, right? He talked about how people in your country, they don't learn civics, or they don't learn about the constitution. But he said something that was so profound. Then I want to maybe tie it into what's going on in Zimbabwe. He talked of a government by the people, for the people. A democracy is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. From your analytical point of view, from what you've done, looking at it from that angle, do you think the current government is a representation of the people, by the people, for the people, or it's for some people, by some people, and for whoever is selected to be part of that? There are a lot of young people on the streets that I talk to in Zimbabwe who have absolutely no relationship with the government. Some of my former colleagues here from Zimbabwe, people, my friends who are based here in Zimbabwe, they have absolutely no connection with the government. Your thoughts?
Okay, my thoughts is, I think number one that I said here, the inability of those in power to explain exactly that there is a relationship, between people and the government, and also, lack of knowledge of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. There is a strong relationship through, we can say, councillors in the villages that people vote for, through the members of parliament. Those are representatives of the people. Not everybody is supposed to go in the parliament of Zimbabwe, that they have their representatives that are in parliament. So we can talk about maybe, the president got in power because of this and that, because it was not fair. But what about your councillor in your village? that you have chosen to represent you? What about, the MP themselves? So if people are going to be educated, just like here in the United States of America, children are educated in school, that you are part of the government, because the government is for the people, by you. There is not going to be a government without the people of Zimbabwe. But there is miscommunication that people will end up believing that the government is not there for them. Of course, I'm not painting a rosy picture for the government in power, because there are things they are supposed to do as well. For example, working hard on being trusted by the people of Zimbabwe. And for example, when they took over power, they said they were going to create so many jobs for the youth. Where are those jobs? So the government has failed to prove itself for people really to feel that they are connected to the government. And also the idea of failing to communicate in plain language, the language people know, all the way to the villages, that we are here for you. But again, let's be honest here. Actions speak louder than words. No matter how much the government is going to tell people that, if on the ground people don't see change, they will be wasting their time. A lot of people, as you have said, the youth, there are no jobs. People are not being, maybe taught how to create their own jobs, looking at what is happening, right? There's a lot of, rural to urban migration, a lot of poverty. So the government may try to communicate, but communication without action is not going to change people's views at all. And, I am in support of those people who don't see connection with the government, because they don't see actions that benefit them individually. The government maybe does not have tangible things in their hands that you in the rural area, you who is crying, this is what we have done for you. Do you see it or not? I go to Zimbabwe every time since I came to the US in 2000. I have gone 18 times, and I go every year, right to the village that I also helped to develop. And I hear stories that we've been independent since 1980. We haven't seen this. So where is the government? So the government should listen to the people. And again, people in Zimbabwe and all over Africa, they are complaining about corruption because they see it. It's something that has been made a culture where even if you build your house, you want electricity to be put in your house, you put in everything, you want supervision for everything to pass, you pay everything. Somebody will tell you that you have to give a thank you note before somebody comes to do their job. There is, ZAC, Zimbabwe's anti-corruption, of course, for a purpose. And that alone was set by the government, acknowledging that there is corruption. You can't set such a commission without acknowledging that there is corruption in Zimbabwe. And corruption is a way of stealing from people. And no wonder why people are saying the government is not representing us, because they see corruption on a daily basis. So the government has a lot of work to do.
Let's touch very briefly about the opposition. Where is opposition in this fight? I have been looking at people talking. I've looked at pundits. I've looked at some professors like you discussing the current situation, but I'm not seeing opposition voices. Where are the opposition leaders? I've seen some who have said that they'll go to court, they will defend this constitution. But as we speak now, opposition in Zimbabwe remains fragmented. Can they really take on this at the moment? The way we look at opposition, do they have the power to take on this, whether it's through the court process or even to take it out to the people and campaign on these issues?
I think the opposition is composed of lawyers, seasoned lawyers. Chamisa himself is a lawyer, and then Tedai, and many others as well. They know the process to follow. they can go to court. And last week, there was a lawyer who went to the Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, before this resolution was tabled in Parliament, to file a complaint against that. And the Constitutional Court sided with him and said for any constitution of Zimbabwe to change and extend the president's power, even though it has not been filed in Parliament yet, because it was not, it needs a referendum. So he won that way. And, so the opposition can also do that. What I don't want to see is for the opposition to campaign so that people are going to go in the streets and there is going to be violence. We don't want that violence because it's not going to benefit anybody. Let's be civil, and we take it to the Constitutional Court. We take it to the regional body SADC. We take it to the African Union. We take it to the United Nations and say the Zimbabwe's constitution has been violated, because so far it has not been violated. I want the opposition to work on making sure each and every Zimbabwean is educated about the functions of the government, the constitution of Zimbabwe. And I want the government of Zimbabwe to be able to print Zimbabwe's constitutions in all languages. And please don't give people for free. They can buy, as we do in the USA here, everywhere else. So that people are going to invest in knowledge of knowing exactly how things go in government. So far, if I want the Constitution of Zimbabwe right now to buy it, I have the Constitution of the USA. All my kids have the Constitution of the USA, the small booklets. But in Zimbabwe, there is no access to that. So that's why people can argue without evidence that so and so is the one who is engineering that, when so and so is saying I'm a constitutionalist. And nobody is able to point exactly where in the Constitution the president gets that power to say change this or that I benefit. Because it's kind of like illiteracy in terms of the Constitution. And we don't want that. It will cause violence for nothing when things are laid bare. But
speaking of violence, obviously nobody wants to see the repeat of what happened in 2017 when the military played a decisive role in the transition. That's how Mnangagwa came into power. Looking at it from that context, how important is the current military's posture to silence or support this 2030 agenda? Is the military in anywhere near this agenda? Are they in favor, or it's something that they haven't even discussed?
Well, all over the world, the military is there to guarantee that the Constitution is going to be followed. We have seen it in 2017 when they failed and justified that the Constitution was being violated, and they acted accordingly. And the Constitution was read to everyone by General Chiwenga, saying we are acting according to the Constitution of Zimbabwe for what we are doing. So in this matter, I don't think anything has changed so far. The Constitution the military used in 2017 is the same Constitution that is there. And I believe 100% that if need be, they are going to do exactly what they have done using the Constitution. But in this case, there is no need for them to do that. 2028, we still have time. In 2028, the current president has said, no, I am not going to extend my term. So the military is where it was always been in 2017 and even before. And a very educated military as well, as far as I have tracked their qualifications. So I'm not afraid of the military, or maybe saying they are not going to do this and that. Absolutely not. They are so much aware of their duties. And I see, things moving according to the Constitution of Zimbabwe. On talking. Let's the Zimbabwean, what we are doing right now, even what Zimbabweans are doing right now, complaining and debating and disagreeing on this and that. It's a deep thing. Knowledge is going to come from such type of talk. Whether people are lost or not, that's part of learning. So let's keep it up, Zimbabweans. The only thing I will never want to hear in my entire life is violence on each other at any level, whether in the village, in cities or not. Let people talk, but people should never fight on politics. Let's unite and build, our individual economies. And I have a program on one radio station in Zimbabwe that is 100% going to be dedicated on the best way to build your individual economy that will never be affected by any government in Zimbabwe or beyond. So I'm available to teach people that, and also tell people and even teach them that violence doesn't benefit anybody.
I like that. I entirely agree with what you're saying there. Violence does not benefit anybody. Let's advocate for constructive criticism, constructive engagement when it comes to some of these issues. But finally, before we go, we're almost out of time. Supposing these amendments pass, what message does this send to the younger people that we talked about earlier, who have no jobs, who have no hope, who have lost faith in the leadership, who have lost faith in the country that they call their beloved country, who are hopeless? They don't have anything to aspire to. What does this mean, supposing these amendments pass?
Okay. If this amendment is going to miraculously pass, which it is not going to be, what it means from a business standpoint, it means that each and every one of us should invest time to learn how to create their own economies. That's one thing I would say. That's the message, because, whether it is not going to pass or not, whether the president is going to leave office or not, we are not going to wake up tomorrow in Zimbabwe or in Africa with jobs for everybody. So let's be clear about that, suppose the president is going to continue, or suppose the president is not going to continue, a new administration is going to come, the situation for most of us is not going to change until we change ourselves. So there are programs, there are books, and as a matter of fact, I have bought a lot of books, just financial books, just to go and give people of Zimbabwe that politics can go the way it can go. But let's not expect manna from heaven. It's way over. Manna from heaven is going to come from what we do for ourselves in creating our personal economies, that if we put together our individual economies, we are going to develop ourselves, our villages, our cities, and our country far much better than anything else. So the vacuum is here, an opportunity is here to learn how best each of us can create their own economies. It has been done. Please search my name on Google. Just type my name. You're going to see a list of what I have done in my village in trying to create each and every person's economy, because a country is built by its citizens, as the president has said. So if you are a citizen, look around yourself and see, well, what have I done for me and for the next person? Because if you light a lamp for someone else, it is going to brighten your path. That's a Buddha proverb. So let's light lamps for some other people with knowledge, with donations, and we're going to develop ourselves.
Well, I think that's the best way, I guess, to end this show. Professor Elliott Masocha, thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Let's do it again.
Absolutely. And for those of you joining us tonight, to our viewers, we thank you. I saw a lot of people who are following this program. Keep those comments coming. Please share, like, And tell your friends about what we are doing here. We are trying to promote you in Zimbabwe, promote programs like this that spotlight your countries. And of course, don't forget to follow me, Paul Ndiho, on YouTube, X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Spotify, and Substack. Just search for Paul Ndiho or Different Perspectives. Subscribe, share, and keep the conversation going. I'm Paul Ndiho. Good night and so long from Washington. Thank you again, Professor. Stick around for a minute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.